What's up, guys? Welcome to Touchdown Talk, your podcast where everything and anything football goes. I'm your host, Jason. And today we're going to be talking about my weekend review. We're going to be picking up from the last episode, which I posted yesterday. Wednesday, I posted part 1. Today is Thursday, so part 2 is coming out when this is posted. So this is going to cover from Thursday, May 26th, all the way up to Tuesday, which was May 31st. Part 1 covered all the way from the 21st to the 25th. So now this part is going from the 26th to the 31st. Weekend review covering all of the NFL news, all of the events that we had transpire within the week. And I'm going to be going through each one day by day and talking about what happened. So let's get started on Thursday, where we had news of Darren Payne walked out of practice on Tuesday because of his contract situation. This per Ben Standing of The Athletic. So Darren Payne walking out, we're seeing all of this contract talk come out, whether it be for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, every single position, now defensive tackle. All of these players, they want to get paid. And some of them, they deserve the money. They should get paid. And Darren Payne is one of those guys. He is a leader on that team. He is one of the best defensive players on that team. And he just deserves to be paid the money. Now, Washington also needs to pay Terry McLaurin. So, these two guys, big parts of the offense, captains of both sides of the defense. Obviously, McLaurin, the captain of the team, and Darren Payne, one of the big players on the defense, next to Chase Young and Jonathan Allen, of course. But obviously, Washington still has stuff to figure out within the organization, whether or not they're going to have to sell the organization. But they're going to have to figure out how to pay these players too, because there's just so much turmoil within the organization right now due to Dan Snyder and all of the allegations, whether or not if they're going to have to sell the organization, sell the franchise, get a new owner, whatever they're going to have to do on that side, it's going to affect these players and their contracts, especially guys like Payne and McLaurin who need to be paid this year. Let's move on to our next topic, which is head coach Matt Rule telling reporters that the plan is to hold Christian McCaffrey out of preseason games and take, and I quote, a different approach with him at practice. So, obviously, McCaffrey's been one of those guys who, a couple of years ago, people were saying he's the best player in football. But over the past 3 years, 4 years, he's just been hurt. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. In the past 2-3 years, he's been playing minimal games. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, we knew that he was one of the best guys on the field. We knew he was the best running back a couple of years ago. But now it's more of what can Christian McCaffrey do on the field? Can he stay healthy? And that's the biggest question when we look at Christian McCaffrey, because he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field, and that's just terrible for the for the Panthers, because he's such a big player for their team. He's such a big guy for their team, and for him not to be on the field, it's just really gonna hurt their team, and they're gonna need him on the field. So he's gonna need to find a way to get healthy, whether that be changing his routine, changing his workout. We know he's not going to change the way he plays, because he's just one of those guys who plays wholeheartedly, puts everything on the line, and no matter what he does, he always finds a way to play 100%, all or nothing on the field. He plays reckless with his body, which is why he does get injured a lot. But that's just who Christian McCaffrey is. And when he can stay healthy, he is one of the best players in the NFL. But over the last couple of years, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, which hurts not only the team, but Christian McCaffrey himself, and obviously people around him. So, something obviously to look forward at and see if Christian McCaffrey is going to be able to play this season, how quick he's going to be able to get back, and how healthy he could stay throughout the season. More news that we had on Thursday. Thursday was a huge day. We had a ton of news in the NFL. We had 9 different news. We are on number 3 now, which is the NFL and the NFLPA locked in some rules for the 2022 season. Among them was the 8 players per team can return from injured reserve and other reserve lists as detained. 4 games must have elapsed before a player can return. Now, this per Mike Garafolo. I think the image is a bit blurry here, as you could see, but still, it's a big part of what the NFL is trying to do. They're trying to get safety for players, and they're moving into directions for every team. They want to make sure that their players can not only stay healthy, but stay on the field, because it just brings a higher level of play to the NFL. It brings a higher chance that teams are going to win. It brings better views to the NFL, which all in all is going to help the NFL make money in any way they can, and that's just what they're looking at. And for these players, if they stay healthy, they stay on the field, then there's a bigger chance that more fans are going to watch the games that are on TV, which raises the views for the NFL, which then makes more money for the NFL. So the NFL just tries to make money, and that's just what the NFL is trying to do. So another way to doing that is making sure the players are safe and healthy in a sense. Now, there are a ton of players who come out and complain because they don't feel that the NFL does everything they can. But the NFL is trying to move into the direction where they protect their players better. So that's what this is trying to enforce the rule. It's trying to change a couple of things to make the game better and make the game safer, which some people like and some people don't. So wherever you are in that sense, comment down below where you are on the health and safety and what you think the NFL should do about some of their safety rules and regulations. Next up, we had some news that doesn't revolve within the football field, but it does revolve in the NFL, and that is that Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb said that he grew half an inch and gained 10 pounds of muscle this year. Now, CeeDee Lamb, obviously, he's going through a bit of a lawsuit, as I mentioned in part 1 of the video. So he's just going to come out, talk. He didn't really mention it. He just talks about him gaining weight. And, obviously, if you're working out in the off season, obviously, if you're going to be working out, you're going to do what you need to do to help your body and stay healthy, you're obviously going to gain some muscle, you're going to gain some weight, which is good, and it relates to how you're going to play. Staying with the Cowboys, Dak Prescott talked, and Dak Prescott said, and I quote, "This is the healthiest I've been in a long, long time. No restrictions, it feels great." Now that per John Machota, same as CeeDee Lamb, John Machota reported that as well. So Dak Prescott, we see he battled a couple of injuries. We saw a gruesome injury he had just a few years ago. He's trying to come back from that still. And last year, he dealt with an ankle injury. It was kind of bothering him the entire season. He was trying to get back into rhythm. So this year, he's saying he's the healthiest, and that's exactly what Cowboy fans want to hear. If you're a Cowboy fan, this is what you want to hear from your quarterback. You want to hear that he's healthier. You want to hear that he feels better, because he hasn't played up to the level that he played his rookie year, his second year, or third year. He's kind of been on a decrease, and that's not only because of health reasons and injury reasons, but it's because of the team itself. I mean, we can't forget that his first 2 years, he had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, the best at the time, and one of the best in the past decade or so. And for him to have that offensive line, for him to have guys like Zeke his rookie year, when Zeke was phenomenal, then they brought in Amari Cooper. He was phenomenal in Amari Cooper's first year, but now he doesn't have Amari Cooper. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been playing up to the potential that he played with earlier in his career. Dak's been dealing with some injuries. So the team is deteriorating in a sense because they don't have that phenomenal offensive line that they once had. They don't have the receiver room that they once had. And they don't have the running back power that they once had behind Ezekiel Elliott. So all of this coming together is affecting the team and affecting Dak in a negative way that he didn't deal with earlier in his career. So now we're going to stay within the division. We're going to go to the New York Giants now, where Steve Smith announced via his Twitter that he is joining the New York Giants coaching staff. Now, there wasn't an official position on what he is coaching or what position he's taking up, but I would assume it has to be a wide receiver coach, something to do with the wide receiver room, because Steve Smith was obviously one of the best wide receivers when he played. So for him to join the Giants coaching staff and to see the struggles that the Giants have had behind their wide receivers, I think it could be good for the Giants to learn from a veteran who's been there, done that in Steve Smith, to maybe help them get to the level that some fans and the management obviously hope that they would be. Now we're going to move on to a controversial thing. Now, LeSean McCoy called out Eric Bieniemy on the I Am Athlete podcast. McCoy said, and I quote, "Bieniemy hasn't been hired as a head coach in the NFL because of his coaching ability, not because of his race." Now, McCoy also called out how Eric Bieniemy acts and his interactions with players, and added that he is a reason why he stopped playing for the Chiefs. So LeSean McCoy, and I quote, "Listen, because some players he talks to them a certain way, and some players would take it. I wouldn't take it like, whoa. That's the reason why every year they hype him up to get a job, and then when the time comes, nobody hires him because they know what type of coach he really is." So McCoy played with Kansas City. He played with Eric Bieniemy. So for him to come out and just put Eric Bieniemy on blast, there's obviously something there, whether it be a reason as to why McCoy left. He said Bieniemy had a part in that, or why LeSean McCoy stopped playing for the Chiefs. Obviously, Bieniemy was a part of that, according to LeSean McCoy. So maybe this is an indication as to the truth, because as we've seen in the past couple of years, Eric Bieniemy has been hyped throughout the year. He's been hyped by Andy Reid, by the players in the Chiefs organization, by the media, by the networks. And then when the time does come, he doesn't get hired for a coaching job. And everyone wants to throw the race card in there. And then this year we saw a couple of black African American coaches, general managers get hired, and Eric Bieniemy was not one of them again. So there might be some truth to this, because as LeSean McCoy said, when the time does come, nobody hires him. And we don't know what that is. That could be something internally with teams, whether they didn't like how Bieniemy coached them, they didn't like how he interviewed with them. That was the word I was looking for. He didn't interview well with them. He didn't fit the scheme. He didn't agree with what they want to do in the future. There is a lot to take in when you're interviewing for a head coaching job, because you're going to be the guy there. You're going to lead that team, and if they're going to hire you, they think that you are going to be the guy to lead that team to a Super Bowl victory. And obviously, the teams haven't thought that Bieniemy can do that for their team, which is why he hasn't been hired as a head coach yet. Now we're going to go back to Colin Kaepernick, who I mentioned in part 1. He impressed the Las Vegas Raiders during his workout with them, and the doors open, this per Ian Rappaport. So as I talked about in the first part of the video yesterday, if you guys want to go check that out, I'll put the link in the description for you guys. And as I mentioned, Colin Kaepernick hasn't been in the NFL in years. When he did play in the NFL, he played at a high level. He led the 49ers to a Super Bowl. Now they fell short to the Ravens, but Colin Kaepernick was chosen over Alex Smith for the 49ers job. He was chosen to be the 49ers franchise. And then when he did take a kneel against the national anthem, everything just went south from there on. He hasn't played in the league since. And now this might be the chance to where Colin Kaepernick can get back into the NFL, maybe as a backup with some teams. But obviously if he goes to the Raiders, he would be Derek Carr's backup. There wouldn't be a shot for him to start over Derek Carr unless there's an injury, because with Derek Carr now he has Devontae Adams in the offense. I think Colin Kaepernick would be more of a backup, maybe a third string, just somebody to have in the locker room that maybe he can use that as a bridge to get to another team in the offseason. But obviously nothing right now. And then there's no deal imminent at this time, which was reported by Jeremy Fowler. So nothing's going to happen immediately, but something could happen in the near future, maybe within the season if there is an injury to a quarterback. We've seen veterans get signed mid-season because of injuries. So Colin Kaepernick might have a chance to get into the NFL if there is an injury to a player within the NFL season. Now, the last bit of news that we had for Thursday was that the Atlanta Falcons signed running back Jeremy McNichols, the team announced. So this is more of a low-end signing. He's not going to be a big part of the team. They obviously have Cordell Patterson. He'll probably be a second, maybe third string guy for the team. Obviously, he played with the Titans, got some play time with Henry going down with an injury. So unless Cordell Patterson gets injured or something dramatic happens within the team, I don't see McNichols being a starter for the team, but still a good guy to have on the bench, a good guy who can come in scenarios if they need him to. So we're going to start heading over to Friday, where we had another big day, a lot of news on Friday. So let's dive right into it. Start with the Los Angeles Chargers signing Zion Johnson to a rookie deal. He got his deal done. He inked his deal, which is good because the NFL season, you obviously want to sign these guys before the year. So, like I said in multiple videos, they get the deal done. They don't have to worry about it. It's done, and that way the player and the team could move forward looking at the season without having the money and the contract situation hiding over their head and coming up behind them. Staying with signings, the Cleveland Browns and David Njoku reached an agreement on a 4-year, $56.75 million deal. This per Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. So a big deal, 4-year, over $56 million for David Njoku. Now, there were rumors last year that they wanted to trade him, that he wanted out of Cleveland. Maybe they were going to release him. But they franchise tagged him. They got the deal done. So now he's locked up for another 4 years in Cleveland. This obviously is showing that he is going to be a part of that Cleveland Browns team for years to come, for their future. He is going to be in the team's plans. Now, next we had some news and update on Michael Thomas. He has been in attendance at the Saints facility for weeks, organized team activities, but his return to on-field work looks like it won't be coming for a couple of months. Head coach Dennis Allen gave an update on Thomas's condition. He said that the team is pushing for Thomas to be ready to resume football activities when the team gets to training camp this summer. Thomas sat out of last season with an ankle injury. So, news coming out of New Orleans, Michael Thomas, he sat out last season. 2 years ago, he was dealing with injuries. So we haven't seen Mike Thomas in a few years now. And when he was on the field, he was the best receiver. He was one of the top in the league, next to Julio Jones, next to DeAndre Hopkins at the time. And then we really haven't seen him. So if he can come back and be healthier and be able to stay on the field, the Saints could look amazing this year, pairing him with Chris Olave, and then obviously with Alvin Kamara out of the backfield, who can catch and be a receiver role out of the backfield. I think that the Saints could make a push for a playoff appearance, and then it just comes down to the healthiness of guys like Michael Thomas, guys like Jameis Winston who are coming back from injuries. So that is going to be something to watch, but it is a good sign that he is coming at the facility. And as the head coach said, it could be months. So he hopefully could be back before the year for them. Obviously, they want him back. They want him on the field just because of the type of player he is and the leader he is for the team. Staying with some head coaches, we're going to move on to the Rams and Sean McVay. Now, earlier in part 1, we talked about Allen Robinson and his feelings towards the Rams. So now Sean McVay spoke about Allen Robinson, and he said, and I quote, "He's a stud. I've been so impressed with him, just his overall professionalism day in and day out. He's got a great way about himself. Locked in the meetings, and I think for the first time that stands out in the body control for a bigger receiver. I bet you he's a baller on the basketball court. He's wired to be able to double up and play underneath himself. Some of the bigger guys that play as big as he does typically don't have the ability to get in and out of their breaks as seemingly as he does. But I think his transition in and out of breaks and how smooth he is for how big he is very exciting, and love getting to know him a little bit more." So the Rams and Sean McVay are excited to have Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson excited to be there after a tough time in Chicago. So Sean McVay obviously excited to have him, and especially with losing Robert Woods, he's going to fit right into that role, be that number 2 guy next to Cooper Kupp, and then with Van Jefferson at number 3 spot. Allen Robinson could be in for a huge year at that number 2 role just because of how defenses are going to look at the offense. They're going to look at Cooper Kupp, and then they're going to have their number 2, maybe their number 3 guy on Allen Robinson, depending on where he lines up for that Rams offense. And next up, we had some Kansas City news where quarterback Patrick Mahomes believed it would take a group effort to replace Tyreek Hill. Mahomes said, and I quote, "That's what you're going to see with this offense this year. It's going to be everybody. It's not going to be one guy. Obviously, tight end Travis Kelce is still going to be a part and get a lot of completions, a lot of yards, but the whole receiving room is going to have big days, and that can be something we use to our advantage. It's a very deep receiving room. It's hard to tell which guys are going to make it because we've got so many good wide receivers. That's what you want. You want that competition. You want guys competing every single day to make the roster because they're going to help out us in the end." Now, this all per ESPN's Adam Teicher. So, obviously, the Chiefs lose Tyreek Hill in the offseason. They gain a couple of young wide receivers in the draft. Obviously, Travis Kelce is still there. So that's what Patrick Mahomes is referring to. He's referring to all these guys having to step in and really come together as one group in order to use their overall play to cover up for Tyreek Hill's absence and what Tyreek Hill meant for that team. So let's pick up right where we landed. It just cut out real quick. But we're back. Connections right there. We're back where we ended with Tyreek Hill replacing him for that Chiefs offense. So obviously it's going to take a lot of guys to replace the type of player Tyreek Hill was, not only with his speed, but with what he meant to the team and his connection with Patrick Mahomes. So that was it for Friday. So we're going to move into Saturday now, where we had some news revolving Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Deontay Johnson, who shut down an earlier report that he is sitting out a voluntary offseason because of his contract situation, reported by Mark Kaboly of The Athletic. So Mark Kaboly of The Athletic reported that he was sitting out because of contract issues, but Deontay Johnson took to Twitter with this tweet right here to push away any doubt that he had, any doubt that people had that he was sitting out because of his contract issues. So really, it's just a big mess right now with these contract issues. Reporters want to come out and just break a news story right away. They want to be the first one out there that reports it. That way, other people follow their lead. But it needs to be more of a let's wait, get all of the news first, then report, rather than I want to be the first one to break the story. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with reporting nowadays is reporters are so quick, and these beat reporters, they're so quick to just break the news and be the first one to break the news instead of being the first one to gather all the information and make sure everything is correct before breaking the news. So that's just the case that we had here with Deontay Johnson. Obviously, wasn't happy about it. It's not the truth according to Deontay Johnson. So that's why he tweeted out what he did. And then more criticism on Lamar Jackson. He responded to Chris Sims' criticism, where Chris Sims had a whole rant on a video where he was talking about Lamar Jackson not attending OTAs, why he's not there, and really criticizing Lamar Jackson. And then Lamar responded to him on Twitter. So these players responding to the media, responding to reporters, responding to networks, tweeting out, and I think Twitter's their biggest platform as to where they can respond, because they can quote a tweet and then just respond right on that tweet so people know exactly what they're talking about. They know exactly who they're talking to. And that way nothing's misconstrued as to what the players mean or what the media means. That was it for Saturday. There wasn't a big news, just those two players right there talking about the media and the reports. But Sunday we had more of a bigger day, one of the biggest ones next to Thursday and Friday, and that is because we had some news on Baker Mayfield. Finally, some news on Baker Mayfield. I know this has been one of those things where all offseason we're going to be talking about it, and it's just like Aaron Rodgers last year, where everyone was talking about where's Aaron Rodgers going to go? Is he staying in Green Bay? But this offseason is more of Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and these quarterbacks where we don't know where they're going to do. And as early when we talked about Rodgers and Wilson, now it's more of the younger guys. So when it comes to Baker Mayfield, Jeremy Fowler reported that NFL teams interested in a trade for Baker Mayfield want to pay less than 1/3 of his $18.9 million contract that he's scheduled to make in 2022. So the problem here with Baker Mayfield and the Browns is obviously the relationship is ruined. He's obviously never going to play for the Cleveland Browns again, but it's just not going to happen for Baker Mayfield and the Browns. He's not going to play for them. He's not going to be on the field for them. So Baker Mayfield obviously deserves a chance to play, and I believe he will play somewhere. But there's not a sense as to he's going to be a starter. There aren't a lot of teams that will start him week 1, and now with the draft and free agency, his chances really dimmed down as to where he could possibly go. And obviously Cleveland, they're going to have to pay majority of of his contract if they want to get rid of him, which in a sense is a great deal for them, because if they cut him, if they don't trade him because teams want to pay only like $5 or $6 million, then that's a problem for the Browns, because then they have to pay all of his contract. So if Cleveland holds on to him or they releases him, they have to pay all $18.9 million. But if they trade him for maybe a 5th round pick, 6th round pick, whatever they can get for him, they would only have to pay $14 million. Maybe $13 million depending on the team. So that's a good deal for Cleveland. They get a lower end draft pick, maybe a high draft pick within the other late rounds, but that's really all they're going to get at this point for Baker Mayfield. So it's going to be something to watch as to see if Cleveland just pulls the trigger and trades him while taking on majority of his contract instead of holding on to him and paying all $18.9 million, where he's just going to be sitting on the bench for them. So, more contract news. That's Darren Waller. And Darren Waller is seeking a new contract with the Raiders, though he is letting his agent handle the negotiations. Now, Waller said on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and I quote, "My agent is working on that. I understand it, but I know if I focus on it too much, it could take away from my job and learning a new system and just trying to continuing to try to elevate and take care of my body in the right way. I try to focus on those things and let my agent handle that. When decisions need to be made, decisions need to be made." So, this is what a lot of players might not do. Now, obviously, players want to be involved in their conversation for their contract, but Waller taking a different approach, letting his agent handle that, which is good in a sense because he could focus more on himself, more on his field play, more on his body, which we know Darren Waller has had problems in the past. He's overcome them. He's talked about them openly. So Waller doesn't want that additional stress. He doesn't want the additional weight on his shoulders, where now he can just relax a bit, let his agent handle that. That's why players have agents for these scenarios. So he gets to let his agent handle that, and then he gets to focus solely on football, solely on the new McDaniels offense in the Raiders team, Josh McDaniels being their new head coach. So they need to focus on the new system, as he mentioned, and that's where the focus of most of the new Raider players needs to be, because it's a new head coach. It's nothing they've seen before. It's coming from that Bill Belichick offense. So all of these players need to come together. They need to learn the new system together. And there's been a couple new additions, some guys that left the team. So they're going to need to join together to learn this as a united front and as a united team to make the most of what they're going to be able to do this upcoming year. Now, something that I'm really excited to talk about here is the Christian Watson hype on the rise for Green Bay. Now, Green Bay's offensive coordinator Adam Stenovich told The Athletic's Matt Schneiderman, and I quote, "His combination of size and speed is great. He's a big guy, he can move. He's going to be a problem once he figures things out." Now, Christian Watson is a guy who I think was underrated coming into the draft, and especially pairing him with Aaron Rodgers, I think it's a match made in heaven. I think that he reminds me a little bit of Jordy Nelson, and we know what Aaron Rodgers did with Jordy Nelson. We know what Aaron Rodgers has been able to do with a bunch of wide receivers. So, like their offensive coordinator mentioned, once he figures things out, I think Watson could be an elite receiver in the NFL. He has the chance to be the Packers' number one guy. I know he talked about that, saying he's not focused on that. There's a lot of talent on the team. But I think that Watson has the chance to become their clear-cut number one guy late in this year, probably early next year at the least, because I just think that his talent and what he brings to the team is going to be great. Now, I know that Aaron Rodgers isn't at OTAs. I know it was a joke. But Aaron Rodgers not being in OTAs, in a way, it could be good because Aaron Rodgers, we've known he has problems. We've known he had problems with the Packers. So, for Aaron Rodgers, Christian Watson, let Watson figure everything out. Let Watson ask his questions now as a young guy. Let him figure out the offense, where he's supposed to line up, what he's supposed to do, all the different types of scenarios. And that way, when Rodgers comes back, he's not getting aggravated. He's not getting adjusted to these young guys because he's used to having Devontae Adams out there. He's used to having a clear-cut number one guy, best receiver in the NFL, who knows everything about the wide receiver position. So now having a younger guy, Watson's going to have questions, obviously, because he's young. So let him ask those questions now before Rodgers gets there. That way, when Rodgers gets there, Watson knows a little bit more. So that way, Aaron Rodgers can help him out with the fundamentals of their offense instead of all of the other stuff that comes with being a wide receiver. So moving on to Monday now, where we had a little bit of news, not too much. And what most important is Travis Kelce says he's focused more on winning than maximizing his earnings. Now, Kelce said according to the Kansas City Star's Blair Kirchhoff, that, and I quote, "Money is in my mind is almost secondary at this point in my career. I'm here for the legacy. I'm here to try to make the Kansas City Chiefs the best team possible, and that's my main focus. That's why I'm here." So, Travis Kelce, obviously one of the best players for that Kansas City Chiefs team, and probably one of the best players in the NFL, one of the top two tight ends. You can argue it's Kittle and Kelce, but Travis Kelce, he's not worried about the money. And that's good in a sense because, they lost Tyreek Hill, and as Patrick Mahomes mentioned, they're going to have to make up for it. They're going to have to work together as a whole team in order to come together in order to replace Tyreek Hill's presence on the offense because of how good of a player Tyreek Hill was. So coming out and saying this is Travis Kelce as the leader he is for the team, it's just really good for the team, and it just puts them in a real good direction as to where he stands. And that way they know he's not focused on making a big deal, rather he's focused on helping the team win. Now, we did have some sad news that Arizona Cardinals cornerback Jeff Gladney died in a car accident Monday morning at the age of 25. His agent Brian Overstreet told Drew Davidson of Clarence E. Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So obviously sad news here. Just 25 years old, just like Dwayne Haskins, a young player who never really got the chance to star in the NFL, never got the chance to get his career going, but more importantly, he's the age 25. He had an extremely long life ahead of him. I mean, being age 25, that's just so young, and it's just sad to see these players go so young and these people in the world go so young, because we see all the time in the news that kids are dying. We had a shooting in Texas, and for people this young who have their entire life ahead of them, who never really get to even start their life or start anything in their life, it's just really sad to see. And Jeff Gladney, car accident at the age of 25, just really sad. But we gotta move on to other news. I know it's kind of difficult to move on from sad news that bad, but we did have an update on Aaron Donald, who spoke about the idea of his retirement. Aaron Donald said on the I Am Athlete podcast, and I quote, I don't need to play football to be fine. I was blessed to play this game to make the money I made, the accomplishments I made in 8 years. I am complete. If I can win another one, that's great, but if not, I'm at peace. So Aaron Donald, he's okay with retiring, it seems. He is going to go down as one of the best defensive players of all time. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer whenever he decides to retire. He probably will be a first ballot 5 years after he retires to make the Hall of Fame. And for him to come out and say this, it just means that everyone should know it. That he's not going to keep it a secret. He doesn't want people to speculate about it. He just wants everyone to know that he'll play. I mean, he obviously wants to play. But if his contract can't get done, if he can't get back on the field for whatever reason, he's okay with retiring. It's not like he needs to be on the field. He doesn't need to prove anything. He's a Super Bowl champion. He doesn't have anything left to prove. So if he can't get a contract done with the Rams, if he can't get stuff figured out, he can retire at peace. He can retire happy with what he has accomplished in his career. And no matter what, if he decided to retire tomorrow, he will go down as one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Moving on to Tuesday, where we had some news about Jerry Jeudy. Now, we knew that he was arrested last week. So 2 weeks ago, he was brought into custody. So now we got an update on him. And the DA in Arapahoe County has moved to dismiss all charges against Jerry Jeudy in advance of his scheduled hearing today. After reviewing the evidence, I always believe that no crime has been committed and all charges would be dismissed, said his attorney Harvey Steinberg. Now this, according to Adam Schefter on Tuesday. So everything goes away for Jerry Jeudy. He doesn't have to go to jail. He's not arrested. All the charges are dropped. So it looks like Jerry Jeudy, whether he did what was accused of him or not, is getting off clean. So in a sense, good news for Jerry Jeudy. He doesn't have to deal with all that, especially with the NFL season coming up. So he is cleared of all the charges, and he is good for right now. We did have a big signing on Tuesday, which was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signing Akeem Hicks to a 1-year, $10 million deal, according to Adam Schefter. Now, a huge, massive signing for the Bucs. I mean, Akeem Hicks, when healthy, is one of the best defenders in the NFL. He was the leader for that Bears team. He was the Bears' best defensive player, next to Khalil Mack when they had Mack. So now that Akeem Hicks is on the Bucs, we saw that he was going to leave the Bears in free agency. So moving on to the Bucs, where they have Vita Vea, you're going to have Akeem Hicks and Vita Vea up the middle. That is going to be extremely hard for offenses to block, offenses to run the ball. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a massive signing on the defense. Just a couple of days before this, as I mentioned in part 1, Devin White spoke about this being Super Bowl or nothing for the Bucs. Then they go out and sign Akeem Hicks. So whether Tom Brady retires after this season or he plays one more, his time is obviously winding down. The Bucs don't have a successor at quarterback yet. So right now, they have a lot of young guys. They have a talent. They have contracts that they have to worry about in the future. So this could be a make-or-break year for the Bucs, because they're not going to be able to continue signing all of their guys. They're not going to be able to continue bringing back all of their star players. So as Devin White said, this could be Super Bowl or bust for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Akeem Hicks will obviously help the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a dramatic way. Now, we had another defensive player get signed, and that is the Houston Texans signing cornerback Fabian Moreau, this per Mike Garafolo. So Moreau, a veteran in the NFL, a veteran corner, he's going to join the Texans' young team. They obviously have Stingley there, so a young Texans team having a veteran cornerback to help mentor the younger guys is obviously going to help the Houston Texans out in their development of becoming a good team in the NFL once again. Then for the Minnesota Vikings, they had a workout for D.D. Westbrook on Tuesday per Ian Rappaport. So D.D. Westbrook, a wide receiver, He's been on and off the field, a couple of teams, a couple of injuries here and there. So he gets to work out with the Vikings, but we had some news that the Vikings signed Albert Wilson to a one-year deal, that per Adam Schefter. So if they signed Albert Wilson, are they really going to sign a guy like D.D. Westbrook when Albert Wilson is kind of that same type of player? He's that same type of lower-end wide receiver who can get the job done for your team if you need him to. And then our last bit of news that we had on Tuesday, this is going to close out the video, and this is Kenny Pickett working with the third string in the second week of OTAs, but he's not surprised by the early pecking order. And I quote, "I didn't think I was going to walk in and be the number one. It's kind of what I was expecting, just come in here and earn everything I get." This per Brooke Pryor. So many people thought, including myself, that Kenny Pickett was going to be the Steelers starting quarterback, and I still do believe that he will be their starting quarterback. Maybe not week 1, but I do think by week 3 he'll be starting. I hope that he's starting week 1. I think that, he's not a first round pick for the Steelers, where they haven't done that in so long, to where he's just not going to start. They're not going to draft Kenny Pickett in the first round, bring him into the team, and then keep him on the bench behind Mitch Trubisky and following Mitch Trubisky, then putting him on the bench next to Mason Rudolph. I mean, Mason Rudolph is not a starting caliber quarterback. Mitch Trubisky hasn't been up to that level in a couple of years, besides his first or second year in Chicago. So what really comes down to is Kenny Pickett deserves a chance to start. He is most likely going to beat out Mason Rudolph. And then it's just going to come down to if the Steelers want to go ahead and start the rookie week 1 or give Mitch Trubisky a chance to start because they signed him in free agency. But that is going to do it for this video. That is the end of part 2. And a lot of news over these past weeks. I was away. As I mentioned, I didn't have access to my laptop, didn't have access to the internet, so I wasn't able to record, wasn't able to upload, wasn't able to get the news out to you guys. But as always, all of the designs are on the Instagram. Everything you can see from this video and from all my other videos are on my Instagram. I take them straight from the Instagram, throw them up for you guys. So if you guys do want to go check that out, the link to my Instagram is in the bio, in the description for this video. The link to part 1 will also be in the link. The link to part 1 of this video will be in the description. This, of course, is part 2. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it. And then I will see you guys next time.